I want to give a brief introduction here to Roger Greenaway, and we sort of met Roger Greenaway essentially through Tiagi's recommendation. Saw his information on the website there, and we didn't really know of him, and it just seemed amazing that his entire orientation is about how to get the most out of gains, exercises, and things that you do. That's what he specializes in. So I think it's just excellent. He has a website called reviewing.com. Is that correct?
.co.uk.
Oh yeah, that's right. Reviewing.co.uk, where you can see his articles and read some more about all of this. And I think I want to let Roger tell you the most about what he does, so I'm going to, at this point, turn it over to Roger. We give a welcome to our keynote.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy, and your team for inviting me here. My understanding is that today you have a keynote presenter who's only just recently been introduced to what Agile and the Agile community is all about. So you'll today have the benefit of an outsider view. And tomorrow's keynote from Jürgen Appello, I believe he's a little more tuned in to the Agile community. So today is the kind of view from the outside. The games I'm going to present, there are some little ones in the keynote and some bigger ones in the deep dives. At the moment they're not Agile games as far as I know. But I hope that by the end of the day some of you will have some more Agile games than these ones, in my way of thinking, a little more focused on debriefing. It might be that some of the games that I mention, or that we do in this session or in the workshops, think, oh, we've done those already. Well, you can enjoy doing them again, probably from a different angle and a different tweak and so on. I'm not sure how original these might be. When I first got the invitation about Agile games, I thought, that sounds really interesting. I wonder what they are, and I immediately thought of a friend of mine who was a dance therapist. And I thought he'd be really good at Agile games. And then I went on to Wikipedia and started learning all about it. Oh, right, and it was starting to tick, and I started to understand why I had been invited. The more that I learnt about it, although it's a new language, it's as if I've been in a parallel world doing things that are a little bit similar. So this is a wonderful opportunity to connect. And I'm really looking forward to this evening's session where I'll be learning something from the gentleman doing this evening's session. Llewellyn, right. And taking part in other parts of the conference. So it might happen the other way around, that Agile games that I pick up during the conference become debriefing games. So I'm on the lookout for new learning as well. My usual, my kind of business as usual is doing workshops. I tend to do interactive, dynamic style working most of the time. So I have done one or two PowerPoint presentations in the past, but not too many. And you'll probably notice this as we go along. But the PowerPoint is maximum 30 minutes, and then we get into the shallow dives. The shallow dives are the sampling of 2, maybe 3 games during this keynote presentation. I was getting mixed messages about PowerPoints. On the document that I signed, I'm contracted to provide one, and then I noticed a few references in Agile literature to PowerPoint not being so I've kind of played a bit of a middle road, and there's a little bit of PowerPoint and a few games, and I hope to leave time, 5 or 10 minutes at the end, for question and answers. If you have any burning questions during the session, you can ask them during the session. Right, so I think from Nancy's introduction, this title came from listening to the Agile community. And I was interested to see that there was Agile processes involved in the setting up of this event. So here's one. Oh, you've got a different version here. Okay. Yeah, this is one of the messages that came out of the evaluation last time. So this also shows a bit of listening to the Agile community. It may not have been unanimous, but there was certainly a lot of interest expressed. Reviewing is exactly what our audience is most interested in. So reviewing, debriefing, reflection, processing, there are subtle differences between them, but they're mostly interchangeable terms. And I'll probably be moving around from one to the other. Also, I think this is an Agile process. You may recognize this from the messages coming out. The earlier you submit your game, if you're considering that, the more feedback cycles you will get, and the more chances you have for your game being selected. And what I learned about Agile on Wikipedia and various other places, this seems to be a very Agile process in the setting up of this event. It was through Wikipedia I got onto Jürgen Appello's site, and I learned a lot about Agile from Jürgen Appello's site. And it was only much later that I realised he's the guy who's turning up here at this conference. So what I learned about it is a combination of Wikipedia and Jürgen Appello. Okay, these are some of the alternative names that I give to what I do. It depends a little which country I'm in. And after action reviews actually comes from the US Army. That's where that originated, although usually when people refer to this process in the USA, I understand that it tends to be debriefing. The difference is debriefing is usually what the facilitator does rather than what the participants do. So the benefit of using terms like reviewing or reflection, those are the things that the participants can do. So I like to keep a focus on what participants do. This is also a definition of debriefing or reviewing. And I think there are some gentle laughs of recognition there. Yet it often is left till the end when you're short of time. So I'm always battling against this and getting people to restructure their programs so that debriefing happens when everyone is awake and fresh. It might be, for example, at the beginning of a session, referring back to a previous session, so you catch people while they're alert and alive. Quite recently I met a woman at a conference, and she asked me what I did for a living. And I said I train people in debriefing skills. There was a little pause, as if she was waiting for me to carry on. And then she said, well, the answer is yes, and I suspect the reason for the woman's surprise is possibly that debriefing is assumed to be based around just 3 questions, maybe these 3 questions. And I can imagine what this woman was thinking. Had she said this aloud, I might have answered, because I will be showing you soon my 4 questions. But I forget, is this coming up? Yes. Although people often think first questions when it comes to debriefing or review, I tend to think activities. What are people going to be doing? So for me, Debrief is an opportunity for all kinds of activities and techniques that help people to reflect on their experience and learn from it. So I call it today, I call it the game after the game. Yeah, debriefing can happen at any time. Each game draws on experience, each game is an experience. A lot of people tend to assume that reflection is a time for not having an experience. Reflection is a time when you think about a previous experience. But for me, reflection itself is an experience. And you try to make that an engaging and rewarding and satisfying and significant experience. A little bit of philosophy maybe. Life is a stream of overlapping experiences. We cannot create intervals in which we do not experience anything at all. Now, if you're into meditation, you might try very hard to achieve this, where you create this gap where you're not experiencing anything. But people who do meditation love the experience of meditation. Even that mind-emptying process is an experience that can be a wonderful experience. So this idea that there is the activity, whether it's a work activity or a game activity that you're doing, that was the experience. And afterwards you kind of float up into a place where you're not experiencing anything and you're reflecting on things. I think that's fiction, because at any time you're involved in reflection, you are also experiencing. So what I try to do is make that experience of reflection and review engaging, satisfying, rewarding one. So a debrief can be rich in opportunities for all learning styles, not just for people who work up here all the time, for all thinking styles and for all intelligences. So that's what I try to go for, maybe not in every review or debrief, but try to incorporate these as much as possible. Makes it a richer experience for individuals, and it makes it more likely that everyone is engaged, because you're using more of these styles and intelligences. And debrief can involve, it doesn't have to be in a group, it can be in different combinations.
Excuse me.
Think debrief and we focus on thinking and learning and what people are saying. Think games and we focus on what the players or participants are doing and experiencing. Think debriefing games and we get the best of both. Yes, okay. What I'm now going to do is switch into another little PowerPoint, and this will lead into the first shallow dive for you. This is available on my website. It's also, if you want to refer to this, you can easily find it. Am I still switched on?
Yes.
Yeah. And this is these are the four questions, 1, 2, 3, 4 there. The ace, the heart, the spade, and the club. And what I want to draw your attention to in this keynote is the one in the middle, the joker. So I had my 4-stage reviewing process that you will see in a moment. I've used it in my travels, so I've worked quite a lot in China. And there was one organisation I worked with in China. They liked the model so much. This was before the joker was there. They liked the 4-stage model so much that they insisted that all their facilitators and trainers always use the 4 stages for every single debrief. And I was horrified that my flexible, dynamic kind of training became so kind of fossilised and regimented, and that was not my intention at all. I didn't believe that this training organisation would be turning out good trainers if that was the kind of control or the strong guidance that they gave to their trainers. And it was just very fortunate that in a pack of reviewing cards, there was a joker. So I found the joker in a pack of cards, and I said, last time I came, I didn't introduce you to the joker. Here's the joker. It's a wild card. It can represent anything you want to. It is always there. It is always available. And any model should have a joker. Every model should have a joker, because what models are good at is simplifying the complex world of reality. So in order to try and grasp that, we simplify things into a useful, usable model. But if we use the model too much, we get too comfortable in the model, we tend to forget that the model isn't everything. There are other things outside the model that might be important. So the joker is in the middle all the time, as a reminder that whatever model you're using, there's something extra, something outside that you should also be thinking about. So the joker can become anything you want it to be. And at the end of this, I want to clarify that by giving you just one or two examples of what the joker might be like in practice. But there's no guidance for the joker. I actually have an infinite supply of jokers. So whenever people say to me, oh, I know what the joker is for, it could be for a meta view. So a meta view, that's really good. So here's your meta view joker. Here is another joker which does not yet have any function. And they kind of make a function for it. So, well, here's another. I've got an infinite supply with me. Because the idea with the joker isn't to create the perfect model. You think, at last, we found all these functions, we've now got the perfect model. There's never such a thing. So I do whole workshops about the joker. I get quite excited about the joker. But on its own, the joker becomes quite a weak card. Because on its own, if in every situation you just walk in, you have no structure, and you just play everything, you improvise everything and play it by ear, you might get away with that from time to time. It might be brilliant from time to time, but in the end it becomes a weak card. So I think it's always important to have a balance between some kind of structure and the freedom to also know what's outside the structure and to play with both. And it's getting the right balance between the combination of the two. So you might be wondering what the cards around the edge represent. This morning these are kind of a little less important, but I'm just going to whiz through them. This is the diamond. I presented it to a group of philosophers as facts. I said, this is the first part of my model. It's facts. That is the solid beginning. And they said, hold on, hold on. For philosophers, there is no such thing as a clear, undisputed fact. So it became first assumptions. So it's how things first appear before you go in too deeply. These are the kind of questions that might go with the facts stage of the cycle. But I also have activities, and we'll be doing a couple of these in a little while. So it's not necessarily, you don't necessarily go into this with questions, you might go into it with an action replay, for example, where you restage a key moment in the event that you're debriefing. And you get people into position. Not doing the same activity again, just getting a position so everyone knows exactly what you're talking about. You recreate that moment. And then from that point, it brings the review or the debrief to life. The symbolism here is a little more straightforward. It's a combination of feelings and intuition. And taken together, these two are referred to as the red side of the diagram of bringing out the story. And the first exercise we'll be doing is about bringing out the story. But just telling stories, you can achieve a lot through telling stories about what happened. But you can get a lot more if you dig a bit deeper into the story. So this is where the spade comes in handy. So digging deeper into the story with these kinds of questions. This is the analytical part of the process. Many people think, right, we're here to learn, we're here in a debrief, so our job is to analyse, and they go straight into the analysis. I find this often where you don't get much of a response. if you go straight in at this stage. So I find a bit of storytelling at the beginning helps not only to warm people up, but also to be sure that everyone knows what it is that you're investigating. So, although you might sometimes play the joker and start at this stage, if you're not getting a response, it's a clue that you need to go back to the early storytelling stages. Then, of course, it's all about getting to the future. Find in training settings, a lot of people just think future action plan and that's it, and the thinking goes no further. So here you will see there are many other useful options when it comes to concluding a review or debrief. Sometimes people aren't ready to make a plan, but they can do some of these other things. They can make a prediction. They can continue with the experiment. They can come up with a new question. These are not really plans, but they do take the learning further. So I encourage people to be a little more imaginative about the kind of options that are available when you come to consider the future. And so on with the black cards, these are all about turning experience into learning. Okay, and the joker I've already introduced to you. I'd like to give you some examples of the joker, and when I've given those examples, I'll then set up the first shallow dive so that you have a chance to participate. So my three examples. One is, in fact, goes back to philosophers. These were teachers of philosophy. They found a very useful use of the joker card was as a kind of stop card, so that the students they were working with, at any time they felt uncomfortable in the process, they wanted things to stop, they would just hold up the joker. And they found that because it's symbolised in a particular card, it's much easier than saying stop, I don't like this. That takes kind of a lot of confidence. But finding the joker card and holding it up, when it's that this is a joker with a particular meaning, of course, by now, holding the joker card up, it kind of symbolises this and makes it a bit easier. So it's a kind of stop, and it gets into a kind of meta process, looking at what's happening. Of course, there's always this infinite supply of jokers around. I've used it quite a lot in facilitator training, where I start off with the metaphor of spinning plates. How you know, these we have these sticks, and you try and keep lots of plates spinning. The job of a facilitator, you have to attend to so many different things going on in a group. You know, the task, the individual, the whole group atmosphere, yourself. You have to look after, and there's so many things. And what we do with these plates is we write on the plates what they might represent. And then people take it in turns to say, well, if we focus on this plate, what are we not focusing on? And if we focus on this plate, what are we not focusing on? And it kind of turns into a slow dance with, if you feel that your own plate is being focused on, then you walk with it into the middle. And if you feel that your plate is being ignored, then you walk to the outside. So what we get is a kind of pattern of what things look like when, how complex the facilitator's job is, because they have to keep so many plates spinning. So I use this in facilitator training, and because it's, I consider it a joker technique, because it's always looking at what are we not considering. So you're always looking at the plates on the outside, and also the plates that have nothing written on them yet. So as the process continues, people are always thinking, what are we not thinking about that does not yet exist on the plate? So throughout the process, they keep creating new plates. It's almost like keep creating new jokers. Now I come to my favourite story, and then after this one, we'll move into the first activity. This was at a conference where it was a fairly academic conference. It was the International Consortium of Experiential Learning. And I was doing a workshop within this conference, and it was toward the end of the conference. And there was quite a lot of people involved in outdoor training at this conference. But we haven't been outdoors during the whole conference, which I found quite strange. There was beautiful green scenery and everything outside. So I thought it's important that I take these people outside, whether they work in the outdoors or not. I felt it was time to get away from the pressure of the conference. It hasn't built up yet, I hope. to get away from the pressure of the conference and be outside. And outside I spotted the children's playground. And I thought, how can I fit this in? This will be a kind of fun thing to do. And my brain got working inside. And my session was going to be about the joking, about what's missing. And it was also about learning models. So I made up this story. I said, all the great learning theorists from the past, from 2,000 years ago to the last century, all these great learning theorists had come together for a meeting. And the topic of their meeting was how much we have all been misunderstood. So we write these books and we draw these models, and people pick up these models and use them. But when they pick up these models and use them, they don't seem to understand them. They become superficial. They become much smaller. We have big ideas, and people just pick up these models and use them, and they're misunderstanding. They're misusing them. I'm sure you can think of many examples where people presenting a model or using a model, and they've just seen the picture and they haven't read the book. Yeah. Now, I've also got this little theory of my own, that in the early days of publishing, the software that was available really only allowed you to do circles and triangles and boxes. So when learning theorists came to present their theories in a visual manner, they all fit into triangles, circles, or boxes, which is very strange when you stop to think about it. So these learning theorists meeting outside at what is now children's playground, they constructed dynamic learning models. These dynamic learning models were slides and swings and monkey bars and nets and all kinds of things in the children's playground. And I asked them to go out there. It was about 30 people. They divided into little groups of 4 or 5, and they chose an item of equipment, and they played on that item of equipment. And after 10 minutes of playing on the equipment, they then had to give a presentation while playing to the rest of the group to explain this dynamic learning model that had been left there by some great theorist. And I remember the founder of the ISIL movement on the swing, swinging backwards and forwards, and her team were pushing her higher and higher. And as she was moving backwards and forwards on the swing, she was giving a little lecture about the learning model and explaining it to us all. And it continued as we went around to the